is from chapter 6, and the number is 32. Bhagavad Gita, verse number 32 from chapter 6. Atmapamyena sarvatra Atma upamyena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. Atma upamyena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna sukham yavadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. Atma upamayena sarvatra samam pashyanti Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham Ayogi Paramo Mataha. Synonyms: Atma with his self, Apamyena by comparison, Sarvatra everywhere, Samam equally, Pashyati sees, Yah he who, Arjuna, O Arjun, Sukham happiness, Va or Yadi if, Va or Dukkham distress, Sa such, Yogi a transcendentalist, Paramaha perfect, Mataha is considered. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. And purport also by Divine Grace Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. Purport: one who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress, by dint of his own personal experience. The cause of the distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God. And the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all the activities of the human being, the proprietor of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friend of all living entities. The perfect yogi knows that the living being who is conditioned by the modes of material nature is subjected to the threefold material miseries due to forgetfulness of his relationship with Krishna. And because one in Krishna consciousness is happy, he tries to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere. Since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, he is the best philanthropist in the world. And he is the dearest servitor of the Lord. Nachastasman manushyeshu kaschin me priya krittamaha. Bhagavad Gita 1869. In other words, a devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living entities. And in this way, he is factually the friend of everyone. He is the best yogi because he does not desire perfection in yoga for his personal benefit, but tries for others also. He does not envy his fellow living entities. Here is a contrast between a pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested only in his personal elevation. Yogi who has withdrawn to a secluded place in order to mediate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man towards Krishna consciousness. Om Jnanam Timirindasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shriutapatakamelam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishvansute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhayevcha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanand Shri Advait Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Prabhupada. Welcome to the today's session of chat. dear devotees. We are continuing with the chapter 6 entitled the Dhyana Yoga, where Krishna is gradually discussing various aspects of spiritual life and giving a very deeper insight to Arjun as to how controlling of senses alone can lead to happiness. And of those senses, mind being the king of all the senses is something to be controlled. And then Krishna takes Arjun through to the process of controlling the mind to the practice of dhyana yoga, wherein a yogi sits in a certain posture, he breathes in and out, focuses and controls his external senses and desires, etc., and focuses his mind on the supreme, and in this way wants to control the mind. So we'll see how Arjun would not be able to uh, follow uh, the process, saying it to be very difficult or not so practical for him 5,000 years ago. And so, in today's age, that process of dhyana yoga would also not be very easily achievable. And uh, however, we see that the same stage of yoga can be achieved through the process of Krishna consciousness, and not only that same stage, rather the better stage. We read in chapter 5, we read one of the verses where there's a mention of a similar equal vision. Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmani Gavihastani Suni Chaiva Swapakicha Panditaha Samadarshinaha. So uh, uh, that chapter was about uh, discussing about Nishkam Karma Yogi. Is able to see everybody with the equal vision. And what was that vision? We understood in that chapter that a yogi is able to see the super soul in everybody's heart. So he understands that in everybody's heart there's a presence of Lord, and in everybody's heart there's a presence of soul. And therefore, the person um, who we our eyes are seeing is not the person in exact way. Rather, the person is seated within that body, and within that body, when that person is seated, who is not visible to us, is a transcendental person who is right now covered by the modes of material nature, which is a part of the external energy of the Lord. In that covered stage, that soul is diluted, experiencing happiness and distress due to the transformations of the modes of nature. And when a yogi is able to see the living entity this way and form, his vision is equal for a cow, for an elephant, for a Brahmin. So he's able to see that every living entity, whether it's an animal or or a human being, what to talk about within human beings, the black and the white and the male or the female or any kind of deformities of the body or the perfections of the bodies, everything is exactly the same because the yogi is able to see the super soul and the soul because he's realized now that this is not the material body which is actually acting. The action is being taken by the soul which is presently seated in the body. I, it reminds me of one pastimes of Lord Krishna when Lord Krishna was in Vrindavan, and uh, and then at that time when Kans invited Krishna to the to Mathura uh, for the fighting arena, so that Kans can deploy his plan um, of killing Krishna through his powerful warriors, so to say, uh, an elephant and all kinds of warriors who were there to do Malayuddha with Krishna. So at that time, when Krishna came to Mathura, he met a lady. Her name was she was Kubza. She has a hunchback. And when Krishna saw that lady, he addressed her as Sundari, as the most beautiful one. And the lady felt very offended because all in all her life, nobody had called her beautiful. Everybody has called her ugly. Uh, Everybody had called her very unfortunate and gave her many names. And anytime and every time when she was seen on the roads or anywhere else, she would be given very derogatory remarks by the people. So when Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, addressed him as most beautiful, she felt as if she had been mocked upon even more, because those who were telling her to be Kubja or ugly, they were at least saying the truth that she knows. But this person, Krishna, is now calling her most beautiful. How is that possible? How can somebody really uh, give such derogatory remarks, because she is not beautiful? She knows that. And she asked this question, that why are you mocking me by calling me beautiful? At that time, Krishna speaks to her that I can see your heart. I am not like all other living entities. I can see that who is seated in the heart. I am seeing not this body, but the soul that you possess is very beautiful, who is in devotion to me, and uh, has been in relationship with me for multiple lifetimes. And in this particular lifetime now, that particular um, devotion has to be fructified. And because of a curse, you are appearing to be ugly. Otherwise, you are actually very beautiful, and that is what I see. She didn't just believe that and kept arguing that I'm not beautiful. At that point in time, Krishna touched her chin and just raised her like this. When Krishna raised her like this, immediately her hunchback was gone and she became like straightened. And all of a sudden, she became very youthful and very, very beautiful looking externally also. So that is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the devotees of Krishna are also have the similar quality uh, of seeing the world in the same way, because they acquire the qualities of purity, of Shuddha Sattva, like the Supreme Lord, because all the living entities are Sat, Chit, and Anand. And when they realize their full um, they realize their real identity, then they also see the world in the similar manner. So, Pandita Samadarshina. That's one thing that we see. And here we can see that how a perfect yogi is able to see equality of all beings in both their happiness and then the stress. And in the purport, we can see how Srila Prabhupada is elaborating that because of his own experiences of this material world, yogi is able to see that happiness uh, in material world is actually very temporary, and the happiness of this material world is limited to the senses. A, temporary; B, limited to the senses and not actually nurturing the soul. For example, there's a story Prabhupada was saying, there's a story in India. There was a man who was asking for sugarcane juice, and how where can he find and how does the sugarcane looks like? And he was told that sugarcane is like a bamboo. It's like a bamboo, and you see sugarcane grows up straight, and it grows like a bamboo tree. So now this man was chewing everywhere, here and there. He was able to find bamboo and he was chewing the bamboo and there was no juice, but he kept thinking that this is happiness. This is the happiness he had been looking for. And he was chewing. And then obviously he was not able to relish the real happiness. Similarly, in the material world, it is said that um, living entities trying to be happy, but unfortunately, they are simply chewing the chewed, which generally means that they are simply trying to derive some happiness, um, which which they are seeking for lifetimes, but they are unable to derive their happiness. In one of the lectures of Srila Prabhupada, he is mentioning that how the minds are agitated uh, every time and every moment for the living entities in the material circumstances. The living entity is thinking that now I'm unhappy, but in the future I shall surely be happy. It's just that this one last bit adds to my life, and once that will happen, I'll become happier. So, what is the problem? But his anxieties continue to increase, they never get reduced. So, one can change his situation, his position, his job, and his wealth. At any point of a journey in the life, he still feels a lot of anxiety because this world is not Vakunta. It's not anxiety free. If you take a dip into an ocean and which is full of water, or if you go to another example, go to a salt mine and lick anywhere, it's going to be salty. You go to a coal mine, it's going to be coal, it's going to be black. Similarly, Krishna is explaining in Bhagavad Gita that this is the Khalema Shashvatam. This particular place is like a mountain of dukkha, mountain of unhappiness. And in this mountain of unhappiness, wherever, whatever you do, all you will get is unhappiness. In the beginning, somebody may feel, no, no, that's not right. It's happiness. I'm quite happy. There are many people you go for book distribution, they'll tell you, I'm very happy. There's nothing that I'm missing in my life. Everything is great. To them, Srila Prabhupada says that all your happiness will be stolen away by one kick of Maya. One stroke of death will take away all your happiness. Where is your happiness then? Because you will not be able to take anything that you have brought along with you. You developed here, you grew, you 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 preserved, you thought it's yours, you lived on it, you cherished it, you developed a sense of possession, and you then broadcasted your identity basis that sense of possession that I am so and so, I have so much of wealth, all my bank accounts are here, I have such prestige, I have such huge, very high identity in the society, a politician, a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever it is, a wealthy industrialist. So all of that will be taken away. All their identity by the flick of one death stroke will be taken away. And then what is that? That is their happiness, which is taken away. So ultimately, it is very temporary. One cannot say that it's permanent. One may be situated in a so-called nice situation, but that nice situation is also not nice because one has to be always being in anxiety. If you have wealth, you have to worry about how to deploy this wealth. Somebody will take it away. How do I grow this wealth? My wealth is not decreasing. And oh my God, my balance has come down now. How do I manage? Because you get used to that kind of reserves and that kind of gives the boost to the false ego. And you fall back on that fruits of your action, on that reserve, thinking that this reserve will save me one day. But nobody can save somebody from death. One obviously then before death, disease may come, old age may come, and senses are no more as healthy as they were before to enjoy the material life. And that way, one would continue to suffer from these anxieties. Happiness of this material world is compared to the uh, a boil. A boil. Let's say there's a boil in the hand, and you keep blowing the boil, you may feel some relief. And after a boil a little bit dried up, you can itch it. You feel nice, it's good. You feel relaxed. You feel I'm happier now. So the cessation of misery, because it is the Kalyamachashvatam, because there is only unhappiness in this world, whenever that unhappiness is reduced a little bit, one feels happy. That is the relative connotation of happiness. It's like darkness and light. Absence of light is darkness in a positive way. And similarly, here we see that absence of or cessation of unhappiness for some time can bring some kind of happiness to a person, and he may feel, oh, I'm happy now. But one has to understand, Srila Prabhupada is saying here, simply trying to make solutions of our anxieties by different methods is not possible to make a solution to the anxieties. So, in 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 another beautiful uh, lecture, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that how this happiness, which is perceived from senses, is never going to last for long, and it is about the consciousness. And if the tree, for example, has less developed consciousness, and it can stand and tolerate the sun and the heat and the rain showers, but a living being or human being cannot do that like a tree because his consciousness is more developed. So he's looking for higher happiness, and he tries to do that through the senses. But if one is not able to get their happiness from the perception or uh, uh, from the from the senses, then uh, he must get awakened in the heart that what is it that I'm lacking. He cannot continue to live like animals. For example, here it says an animal when is slaughtered, but the other animal is still chewing his grass, not knowing that he would be the one who is the next. Similarly, human being is seeing that, okay, that person is suffering, but I will not suffer. I have everything. Why should I suffer? I have youth, I have bank balance, I have my nice employment, and those people don't have money. It's okay. Those people don't have health, but I am going to be like this. So, like that, when people are deluding themselves, thinking that they will be ever happy if they are in the state of so-called perception happiness. But Krishna is saying that there are different degrees of happiness, and one who is situated in the transcendental happiness, that is the right happiness. Sukham atyantikam yatta buddhi graham atindriyam. We read this verse the other day, and their atindriyam, the internal senses, when they are turning towards Krishna, towards Supreme Lord, at that time one can realize that real boundless transcendental happiness, and one would never depart from the truth because of the illusory potency of this unhappiness, which is appearing to be happiness, will go away, and then one would lick the honey rather than licking the uh, bottle of honey from outside. So, Srila Prabhupada has always quoted this verse. You may have heard, Aradhyachena param padam tataha patanti adho nadatra yusmad anagreha. It says here, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down. And they fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. Patanti adha. This is the fall down. They fall down. Patanti adha, down into the material existence. Who are these? Actually, this verse is about those who are not devotees. Those who are not devotees, they will all fall down from their positions, whether in the material world or those who are trying to achieve liberation. One who is trying to achieve liberation, when they reach to Brahman Jyoti, they will also fall down because they have not been able to recognize the personal form of the Lord. They have not holding on to the lotus feet of the Lord. So they are going to fall down. The analogy in this context is given that of a monkey and a cat. The way a monkey carries her baby, monkey does not hold the baby. The baby holds the monkey. And when the baby holds the monkey, when monkey jumps from one tree to another, we have seen many times when you go to a place like Vrindavan, you'll see that how some of the baby monkey they will fall off, and they'll get hurt. Uh, and when we see a cat, the cat is always carrying the kitten from the teeth at the neck. And there is no circumstance that a kitten would fall off the teeth of the cat because the cat, although for the mouse that teeth can be dangerous or death, but for the kitten, that mouth, that teeth is very, very comforting because they're protecting the kitten. And similarly, devotees are always protected by the Lord. They're held by the hand of the Lord. and by the glance of the Lord, by the internal energy of the Lord. And in such situation, they are always protected, and their happiness cannot be taken away because they realize that the source of the happiness is the lotus feet of Krishna. And, and when they take shelter of the very source of the happiness, then their happiness is never ever taken away. Now, in this context, in Nectar of Devotion, this is mentioned that the happiness is can be of three kinds. One happiness that comes from the sense perception, other happiness that comes from the merging of with Brahman Jyoti, and the other happiness, third happiness, which is coming from the pure devotional service. Now, happiness derived from pure devotional service is the highest because it is eternal, and it is derived from, but the happiness derived from material perfection or understanding oneself to be Brahman is inferior because it is temporary. Now, Prabhupada has said about this happiness, and he has taken us to the same verse. Aruddhakachena param padam tataha patanti adho nadrat yushmad anagraha. He's saying by great austerity and penance, one may rise up to the platform of Brahman realization, but one will fall down. That will happen. Now, so therefore, the happiness derived from the impersonalist or even from by the mystic yogis who are chasing after the siddhis or various kind of mystic powers, which is nothing but a material possession, their happiness is definitely temporary. It will go away. So Prabhupada was explaining, I was reading this particular example, Srila Prabhupada explaining that how would he enjoy without the spirit soul? If a man is given a dead body of a woman, will he be able to enjoy that material perceptions? No, because that person who's sitting in the body is no more in that body. So how this one example he's picking up to give us the understanding that ultimately it is the spiritual personality who is enjoying. It's atindriya, which is internal senses. On those internal senses, just like a garment is worn on a body, similarly, this body, which is material body, is growing on the internal senses of the spiritual body. And therefore, whatever is perceived by the soul through the senses right now. But the same perception, when the soul is able to look inwards and is able to perceive their happiness from the spiritual source, then the same happiness is permanent. And the perception, happiness from perception of the senses is temporary, and it will be finished with the temporary. So now, having understood all of this, a devotee, he does not believe in keeping this happiness to oneself. So there's a contrast that Srila Prabhupada is given in this verse, that how a yogi who just wants his own liberation and uh, could be somewhat selfish in that way, is contrast to a devotee who is always wanting to share his happiness, because his happiness of Krishna consciousness is overflowing. It's like if you put a cup and you keep pouring water in it or some nice drink, then that drink will overflow, and that overflow is what is shared by a devotee who is always full of Krishna consciousness, because the ananda, which is unlimited within him, is flowing out. So, on one hand, a devotee understands that this person, living entities, are suffering in this material world. On the other hand, he has this fullness of Krishna consciousness, which he knows is the permanent solution. He understands that living entities suffering because of the forgetfulness of the relationship with Krishna. So his Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj used to give this example that a rich man's son, if he's lost, what is the best way to make him happy again? If he's lost and he's trying to do some odd man jobs here and there, is it not the best way that we reintroduce him back to the father, and the union of with father will bring him all the happiness that he's searching? Similarly, when the living entity has been completely bewildered and lost in the material world, Is it not the best thing to put him back with a relationship with the God? And in this particular way, a pure devotee of the Lord uh, always exhibit the symptoms of um, giving this uh, uh, meaning to the life of living entity uh, by awakening the dormant relationship or dormant Krishna consciousness in the heart of living entity. Now, this is a letter from Tamal Krishna Maharaj to Srila Prabhupada. Sorry, this is a letter uh, to Madhya Disa written by Srila Prabhupada. And he's saying a little sample of Krishna consciousness exhibited in San Francisco during Rath Yatra festival was very much appreciated by public. I think in San Francisco Examiner, it was said that people followed Rath Yatra and experienced so much of joy as they had never enjoyed at any time within recent memory. The reason is that we are giving people direct contact with Krishna, reservoir of all pleasures. Our administration may not be very perfect, but the fact that as soon as they are in contact with Krishna, they'll become he will be happy. So you have got a very nice thing, Krishna consciousness, for distributing to the suffering humanity, and do it nicely, combinedly. It is so nice thing. Anyone who distributes it, anyone who takes it, both are benefited, and Krishna also becomes very happy when all his children are benefited in this way. There is no doubt about it, and our philosophy is the supermost perfect presentation. We can challenge any other philosophy and establish Krishna consciousness is the panacea for all material problems. Now, in his letter to Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, 1969, September 19, Srila Prabhupada is writing here, you write to say that you do not know what is my desire, but my desire is an open secret. I simply want all over the Western countries, people may take this simple formula of chanting, dancing, eating Krishna Prasadam, and become happy. I am simply surprised that they should not accept this simple formula and be happy themselves. My only desire is that all people become happy and prosperous in Krishna consciousness. This is it. This is the sum and substance of Srila Prabhupada's life. What what transpires from today's verse is the essence of what Srila Prabhupada is speaking here. My only desire is that all people become happy and prosperous in Krishna consciousness. You see this verse here, it says, he is a perfect yogi who sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. And then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that how uh, only by Krishna consciousness one can become happy. And this person, he understands this. Therefore, he wants to give Krishna consciousness. He understands by comparison to his own self. He understands there is suffering in this world. And therefore, to make this suffering happy, people happy, he is giving the real happiness to the people of this world. So it goes on. My predecessors, Vaishnavas, they were so generous that they felt very much afflicted for the suffering of the human society. Then he says about Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami tried to elevate them to real path of happiness by introducing this Govinda Ganamrita, the nectarine of the songs of Govinda that will make them happy. You see? So once a living entity achieves this happiness, we read in 622 a couple of days ago, Yam labdva cha param labham manyate nadhikam tataha yasmin stito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalete. Upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. So the material world means difficulties. They'll come, they will go. But as soon as one is situated in Krishna consciousness, then there is no problem, because Krishna consciousness is so potent that little taste can save one from the greatest dangers. It says here. So he begins to see so-called enjoyment and attainments as flat and tasteless. So we have experienced in our own lives when we come to Krishna consciousness how we start to lose taste for other things. The Bollywood, the Hollywood, the pubs, the movies, the theaters, the dancing, the clubs, whatever we eat outside, in due course of time, we see how we lose the taste for all of these things because they're such inferior and flat. There's no taste. There's no taste better than, let's say, standing in the morning darshan arti and dancing with devotees joyfully, uh, leaping out and calling out Krishna's holy name, or chanting the holy names of the Lord in itself is so addictive that one doesn't want to leave that chanting and wants to just continue chanting, uh, because you're associating with Krishna himself. The prasadam is so nice, made without any onions and garlics. Still, it's like amrit because it's offered to Lord Krishna. Seeing that form of the deities, so beautiful, decorated with flowers and dresses, and all the devotees are working around the deities. Uh, they are administrating the temple. They are uh, maintaining the deity kitchen, deity dresses. So all the skill set that one can think of is employed in the service of the Krishna. And it is so satisfying. One time, this devotee was feeling very hot, but when he started to fan Krishna, he felt as if the cold breeze is coming through, and he started to feel very nice. Just by serving the senses of Krishna, one starts to feel a lot of deeper satisfaction and happiness within. And this is the secret of happiness of Krishna consciousness. Now, I just want to read small, very small lines here. It is from the book I'll Build You a Temple, the Juhu story by Srila Gurudas Swami Maharaj. And they were in Vrindavan during the final pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. And so I'll just read a small section what Viraj Maharaj is saying. That night, at around midnight, I was awakened on the roof of the Gurukul building. Prabhupada is calling you, a devotee alerted me. So many thoughts raced through my mind. Was Prabhupada leaving? Was something wrong? I rushed to Prabhupada's room, painfully aware that any word he uttered could be his last. When I entered, he was lying in an eternal state of consciousness. I offered my obeisances, sat close beside him, and waited in silence. After a few minutes, he whispered, do you think this movement will go on after I leave? I was surprised that he had called me in the middle of the night to ask me this, but I replied, yes, Srila Prabhupada, as long as the devotees are sincere and go on chanting Hare Krishna and follow the regulative principles, the movement will be successful. He was silent for a moment. I leaned in, straining to hear. He spoke just one word, organization, paused, and then said, organization and intelligence. I was startled. Prabhupada's words were packed with meaning. Yes, I realized we had to be sincere, chant our 16 rounds, follow regulated principles, but we were meant to do more than just maintain our own spiritual life. We were meant to preach, to expand the movement, and increase the number of devotees. And to do that required both organization and intelligence. The endeavor to spread Krishna consciousness in an intelligent, organized way was our service to Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as much as were chanting the holy names and following the regulative principles. Is there anything else? Prabhupada asked. Was there anything else I want to say? Within my heart, I was crying out, Srila Prabhupada, please stay with us. Don't leave. My heart was screaming. But I simply said, no, Srila Prabhupada, offered my obeisances and left. So we see, even at the last point in time on the planet, Srila Prabhupada was continuously uh, showing his intent and anxiety and worry as if for the expansion of Krishna consciousness movement so that the people in this world can get relief from the misery of this world. And so uh, he wanted to bring them to the platform of a perfect yogi, perfect yogi. So with this, I close the session here. If there is any question or comment, we can discuss that. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Okay. If there is none, then we can close the session here. Thank you very much for coming and discussing this wonderful Bhagavad Gita, an opportunity to purify ourselves. And I feel very fortunate in all of your association. Thank you very much. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhaya patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo.
Vaishnavibhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.